He said, there's just too much to know. And I said, dude, no, there's not that much to know. Now, look, I don't call all my clients dude, but this one's under 30. He calls me coach. And in that moment, it fit. And here's what I told him. You're new to this. You don't need to know everything right away. I've got an entire channel breaking dating down into specifics and nuances, scenarios, why things unfold the way they do. That stuff matters, yeah, and it's there when you're ready for it. But you don't need all of that right now. You need the foundational stuff, the things that'll save you the most time and heartbreak right when you're just starting out or getting back out there. And today I'm going to tell you what I told him. Not everything, just what matters right now. So if that sounds at all interesting or intriguing, I hope you'll stick around because that's what's on the agenda.
Here's some real advice for your dating life. Coffee with Carey. Coffee with Carey.
Nobody actually cares that you're single. I know it feels like they do. It kind of feels like you walk into a room and somehow everybody immediately knows, like you've got a big sign on your back or something, but they don't. They're too busy thinking about themselves or replaying something they said 12 seconds ago or wondering if that dip has been sitting out too long. And the person who asks you about your love life, that's not some deep concern. They just ran out of things to say and you were standing there. You could have been holding a coat and they still would have gone, so are you seeing anyone? There isn't a behind. There's no timeline you missed. This isn't a train you were supposed to catch and now it's gone. But you do have to be in it. If you're not dating, not saying yes, not putting yourself anywhere new, nothing really changes. Not because something's wrong, just because your life is staying exactly the same. And I see this all the time. Somebody tells me that they really, truly want a relationship. But when you look at their life, there's nowhere for that person to even come in contact with others. The same week on repeat, same places, same routines. Love isn't going to show up at your door. That's just not how love works. No one's knocking like, hi, I'm here for the relationship. Picture it for a second. A year from now. Same bed, but there's somebody else there. And that feels normal and easy. Maybe their foot is touching yours and it's slightly annoying, but also, you notice if it wasn't there. That's all you're moving toward. And then tomorrow, just do one thing that version of you would do. Go somewhere, say yes to something, sit across from somebody new and pay attention. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's a little off. Sometimes you leave and you're like, oh my God, that was a strange hour of my life. Yeah, that's all part of it. People don't find love because they got it exactly right. They find it because they keep showing up. So you're not behind. You're just at the part where you need to start. 1979, and we had an open campus. So my boyfriend would pick me up at lunchtime, and we would park at the top of the parking garage at the mall across the street. Oh, you think you know where the story is going? No. I literally wore out the cassette tape of Cheryl Lynn singing Starlove. Starlove. Come with me tonight, all across the universe. We will sail for the stars. That one. He had to buy a whole new album on cassette because I wore out that one song. I didn't even know you could wear out a cassette tape. I'm glad we don't have those anymore. Repeating something that good, worth it every single time. Repeating the same patterns in dating, the ones that keep you stuck, no, not so much. At some point, you have to change what you're playing, change your tune. Be Your Own Matchmaker is my masterclass that gives you a step-by-step framework for dating and finding your person. I spent 13 years as a professional matchmaker, and I'm giving you the exact tools I used behind the scenes. I'm teaching you everything I know, including how to choose better, have better dates, and spot when something feels really good, but it isn't right for you. So you can stop repeating what isn't working and finally get out there and meet someone worth singing about. Why don't you take me in your arms and rock at me? Take me in your arms and rock at me, baby. Take me. It's Sunday night, laundry night, and you're standing in front of an open machine with 2 dryer balls in your hand, and you're thinking, did she mean it when she said talk soon on Thursday? 'Cause it's Sunday now, and soon is doing an awful lot of heavy lifting in that sentence. If you were a cartoon, you'd have question marks floating above your head. You know, if you have to ask, you probably know the answer. You just don't want to put on your cheaters and take a closer look. I'm guessing that if you like her, she probably knows that. She's reclining somewhere with her feet up on a pillow, feeling pretty self-assured. He likes me. He really likes me. She wouldn't be drafting a text and deleting it. She wouldn't be asking her sister to interpret your last voicemail. Because when 2 people actually like each other, nobody's analyzing anything. Because clarity doesn't create anxiety, confusion does. So if you're feeling a little spun out and rereading the same 3 messages like there's going to be a plot twist, you're not in something mutual. You're in something unclear. And unclear has a very specific feeling. It's restless. It's second-guessy. It's you standing in your kitchen mid-thought like you walked in there for a reason and now you're just, I don't know, there. Mutual interest feels very different. It's reassuring all on its own, and it doesn't have you connecting dots like you recently befriended a spotted hyena. So if you're trying to figure out where you stand, that is where you stand. It's time to put on the cheaters. You're mid-sentence telling a friend about this person you went out with, and then you see it, that look. That one where they tilt their head a little bit and they squint and they go, I don't know, that sounds a little bit like a red flag, right? Suddenly you're defending a stranger to somebody who's never even smelled their cologne. You're over-explaining the parking situation or why they were late or why they had such a weird obsession with their sourdough starter. I mean, you walked into the room feeling good about this, and now you're just auditing your own judgment. And look, your friends want you to be happy. They love you. They're terrified you're going to end up with a guy who hides his credit card debt and hollowed out Lord of the Rings books. But they aren't the ones dating them. You are. Dating isn't a group project. You don't need a signed permission slip from the committee to find somebody interesting. I mean, if you're still learning how to spot a genuine problem, fine, ask for a sanity check. But there's a difference between asking for a second pair of eyes and handing over the keys to your entire love life because you're scared to trust your own gut. You're allowed to like someone your friends think is weird. You're allowed to be into somebody who doesn't fit the curated version they have for your life. At the end of the day, they aren't the ones waking up next to this person. You are. So maybe stop asking the table for their blessing and start asking yourself if you actually want to see them again. You have to stop treating chemistry like it's a mystical divine zap that only hits you when the planets align. Chemistry is just data. It's the way your brain processes another human being. Yeah, there's the physical, obvious pull, the thing that makes you want to lean in. But that's the cheap stuff. That's the version of chemistry that lies to you because they have good bone structure and they know how to order a decent whiskey. Or noticing that they have a very specific, annoying way of pronouncing croissant that you find weirdly endearing. Some of this hits on date 1, most of it sneaks up on date 4 when you weren't even looking for it. If you're only hunting for the spark, that high-octane nervous stomach panic, you're going to miss the actual good stuff. The spark is often just your nervous system vibrating because you aren't sure if they like you. What you want is calm. You're not pacing your kitchen at midnight decoding their last text like you're trying to crack the Enigma code. Week 6 is the pivot, the point where the fantasy finally peels off and you meet the real person underneath, and they meet you. I mean, by now you've seen them be a little off, not in a deal breaker way, but in those small human ways. This isn't serious yet. You're not picking paint colors or naming pets. You're sitting across from somebody, splitting mozzarella sticks and seeing whether this conversation lands without both of you trying to choreograph it. It should feel easy, not perfect. Nothing is, but easy. Watch the PR you do for them. Oh, he's just tired, or she's just dealing with something, I think. Maybe those are real, but notice when empathy flips into excuse making, when you find yourself writing their press release in your head for somebody you haven't even actually decided that you want to really stick around with. You're at the gas station and you've been standing at pump 4 for so long that the pump TV has looped through the same segment on how to make a 3-ingredient frittata 4 times. You're just standing there, nozzle in hand, staring into the middle distance while you explain to your steering wheel why he hasn't texted you back since Tuesday. Most of the time, there isn't a complex explanation. He's just not showing up. When a guy tells you he isn't ready for anything serious, he's not asking you to be the magical locksmith who finally picks the rusty padlock on his heart. He's telling you he's a closed door. Don't stand in the hallway with a bobby pin in a dream. That's not a challenge. That's information. You aren't a therapist. You aren't a character developer. You're not here to turn somebody into a person who knows how to show up. You're here to notice whether they already do. Put the script down. Put it down. Put it down. Ditch the subplot and hang up the nozzle and drive away. You're paying for premium gas. Stop using it to fuel a fantasy about a guy whose biggest contribution to your life this week has been this moment. You've been dating for 12 days and you've seen each other 9 times. I know, 9 times. You've seen this person more often this week than your own reflection or the inside of a vegetable crisper. You already have a designated drawer at their place, not because they offered it, but because you quietly colonized it with 3 pair of socks and a backup charger, like you're planting a flag on a very small, very confused island. There's now a bottle of $48 face wash in their bathroom that definitely wasn't there on Tuesday. Nobody's acknowledged its arrival. It's just sitting there on the sink, an uninvited guest staring at his crusty bottle of 3-in-1 shampoo like it's waiting for a formal apology. You're texting like you're being paid by the word. Good morning, good afternoon, an update, what you had for lunch, a play-by-play of the weird noise your car made on the freeway. You're already planning a trip for October. You're basically operating with the domestic intensity of a couple celebrating their silver anniversary, and then, inevitably, the twitch happens. One of you pulls back. It's not a blowout fight, it's just a sudden, terrifying silence. The texts go from paragraphs to, ha ha, nice. The plans for Friday become, ooh, yeah, let me see how I feel, 'cause my sister mentioned blah, blah, blah. And you're sitting on your couch wondering what went wrong, convinced that the love of your life just fell off a cliff. What happened is that you didn't give the thing any oxygen. You've been hovering over this relationship like a Victorian mother with a sickly child, pumping so much intensity into it that poor thing is gasping for air. Attraction needs a gap. It needs a little bit of mystery and a lot of, I wonder what they're doing right now. If you're together constantly from day one, there's no room for anticipation. You can't miss somebody who's currently occupying 94% of your peripheral vision. Wanting is half the fun, but you've skipped the wanting and gone straight to the discussing the humidity of our shared basement phase. I'm not telling you to play games. I'm not saying you should disappear for 3 days and pretend you've been kidnapped by a traveling circus just to see if he calls the cops. I'm saying don't suffocate the spark before it even has a chance to catch. Let there be gaps. Let there be 2 whole days where you don't know exactly what he ate for dinner. Live your own life so that when you finally do sit across from him, you actually have a story to tell that isn't just a recap of the text thread that he was already sent on Thursday. You're at the grocery store staring at a rock-hard, bright green avocado, and you're telling yourself, in 3 days, this is going to be the greatest guacamole the world has ever seen. You're already picturing the chips. You're taste testing the lime juice in your head. You're committed to a future where this fruit is soft, yielding, and perfect. But right now, it's a stone. You could break a window with it. And there is a very real chance that in 3 days, it won't be perfect. It'll just be a different kind of disappointing. This is how you're dating. Your blueprints deep in a future that doesn't exist. The one where he finally processes his childhood baggage and suddenly realizes that you are the sun, the moon, and the whole reason that he stopped wearing cargo shorts to weddings. You've built a 3-story relationship in your head with a version of this man who has been cured. Meanwhile, the actual guy you're dating is showing up 45 minutes late, smelling like a vape shop and giving you a "we'll see" every time you ask if he wants to go to a movie on Saturday. You're waiting because you can see his potential, like he's a fixer-upper house with great bones but no roof and a gas leak and a family of raccoons living in the pantry. You're convinced that if you just love him hard enough, those raccoons will get the hell out of there and he'll finally figure out how to be a person. But the cold hard truth is that you can't date a maybe, you can't date a someday. You are currently dating a guy who treats commitment like it's a summons for a colonoscopy. But the reality check is that he isn't figuring himself out. He's figured out already that he can give you 15% effort while you provide 100% of the emotional infrastructure. You aren't a state-funded rehab center for men who just need a little push to the next woman. Waiting around for them to heal is just a slow-motion way of ghosting your own life. You just got home and you kicked off your shoes and you're currently paralyzed on your couch like a gargoyle replaying the last 3 hours in 4K resolution, trying to decide if that 3-second pause before he ordered the calamari was thoughtful silence or a glimpse into a soul as empty as a desert. He was nice, I think. We didn't have fireworks, but maybe I'm just broken. Is he the one, or am I just settling for a guy who knows how to use a fork? If I don't see him again, am I rejecting my future children? Am I being too picky? Slow down, Sherlock. You just had 2 drinks with a stranger named Mike who works in logistics. You didn't sign a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage. What was just a perfectly fine evening is turned into a full-blown existential crisis? You've taken a casual Tuesday and turned it into a referendum on your entire legacy. This is what happens when you treat every first date like a high-stakes deposition for the position of soulmate. You aren't looking for a connection. You're looking for a reason to hit a reject button so you can stop the terrifying uncertainty of being a human who has to keep going out and meeting other humans. You have to, though. You have to keep meeting people. It's just the way this works. I'm sorry to be the person who tells you all the things that you already know. So those are the pillars that we're going to start with. And some of this probably felt like a cold shower, maybe. A lot of it was probably old news to you. But some of it you'll definitely ignore until 6 months from now when you're sitting in your car after a date with a guy who isn't quite ready for labels yet, but wants to borrow your lawnmower. That's fine. We learn by doing. And sometimes we learn by touching the stove to see if it's actually hot. Spoiler, it's hot. But if you take even one of these, just one, and actually put it into practice instead of just nodding along while you wait for your DoorDash to arrive, you're going to save yourself months of emotional archaeology. Maybe save yourself years of trying to solve the puzzle of some person who doesn't even want to be put together. There's more on this channel when you're ready for it. We've got the intermediate stuff, the nuance, the complicated, what do I do if we're both technically dating other people, but his dog lives at my house kind of scenarios. It's all here. But if you're just starting, stick to the basics. Build the foundation before you try to put a chandelier in the bathroom. All right. I hope you found that interesting or helpful. If you did, you'll probably get a kick out of this episode. Nay, before you go, that's my mom. Could you please give my little mama there the thumbs up she's asking for so sweetly? And I'll look forward to seeing you back here again soon. Oh, you might need to subscribe to the channel before you go. Appreciate you being here. And until next time, have a good one.